Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Logical Nonsense Podcast. Today we will be talking about the Olympics. Wow, what an event this was for all of us to watch. And then I will be finishing it off with a bunch of album reviews. I've been not great about getting these album reviews out. So we've got about 4 or 5 of them coming to you live after Caden hops off. But Caden, how are we doing, man? It's been a minute since you've hopped onto the pod.
It has been a minute. I missed the pod, but I'm doing good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did you watch the Olympics, sir?
I watched most of the highlights. I paid
Yeah.
attention. Like it's hard to catch all the events, but basketball for sure, and then here and there through some swimming, some of the 100-meter stuff, some of the running stuff. So just a little bit here and there.
Yeah, no, it was every time I saw it somewhere, I definitely stopped and watched every time I could. I watched the highlights, the big events, you know, the news for
hmm
sure kept up with, but always fun. I always forget how fun the Summer Olympics especially are. Just the whole world atmosphere and how special that is for so many countries, not even just the US. But let's start there. The US, we win the medal count. We tie in golds with China. What does this mean for the US, do you think?
I think it's almost expected of the U.S., right? Like we
Yeah.
expect to dominate. We expect to have the top tier athletes. I think we would have liked to win the gold medals outright. I think it's always a little bit of a competition with China and Russia before Russia got
Yep.
banned from Olympic stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always just a little underground little competition between us. So to tie is okay, but I think we would have liked to take more golds. We
Yeah.
definitely had a lot of opportunities, as you saw. We best country, second place, really
Yeah.
close a lot of the time, but it means a lot. These athletes are putting everything they can out on the line, putting their lives and jobs to the side. A lot of them don't just do this for their career. It's like the side gig, so it means a lot to them. It means a lot to our country.
Yeah. No, it's a great point you bring up about expectation of almost always winning it. And I think some people low key kind of take it for granted that we do win the Summer Olympics. We don't win the Winter Olympics. I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that. We aren't the winner of the Winter Olympics. So we have the best Summer Olympics athletes, but we should take pride in that. You know, it is a world stage. And I feel like as these Olympic events go on, more and more countries just continue to get more competitive. I think a great scale for that was this year in basketball, just how much more competitive that was from start to finish. How much better countries are getting at those sports. You know, we keep adding sports, so of course there's going to be some sports where I feel like we have an advantage. For example, flag football. You know, we live and breathe football in the U.S., so I'm excited to see how that rolls out in 2028. Um, what did you think of the new sports? We had surfing, we had skating, and we had breakdancing. What did you think of the new sports?
I watched a little bit of the surfing highlights. Those are always fun. It's
Yeah,
cool to see what like people can do and how they even like score that is just it's a little
yeah,
bit complex.
crazy.
It feels like because you're like, oh, that was
Yeah,
pretty good, that was amazing. Then the announcers are like, oh, he messed up.
yeah,
Like where he just did
yeah.
whatever a
It's kind of
backflip
like
and
gymnastics in that
yeah,
sense.
it's like what?
I don't even know what they're judging. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, they slipped their ankle a little bit. Like, what are we
Yeah.
judging here?
And then for breakdancing, I know everyone's probably seen the controversial, Australian breakdancer. So that definitely,
Ray gun,
took
yeah.
the light. But like besides that, I don't know if it's true or if it's just a rumor because of that. But they said they're removing it
No, they
for
are. That
2028.
that is
Yeah,
true. That
yeah.
is a
Oh,
true statement. It got
so
removed already.
it just it's an interesting sport. Like I would never really consider it an Olympic sport. Really, it's just
Yeah,
weird to think about. But it was kind of fun to watch. But I mean, the memes outlive
yeah,
probably the actual talent
yeah,
from that event.
yeah. No, I would be surprised if we see breakdancing ever come
Mhm.
back again.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit of a stretch in terms of sport. I understand, like, we don't have dance as a sport. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Like, there's ballet dancing. There's so many different types of dance, right? And that's cool, but we don't consider that sports. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I think if you're gonna bring in breakdancing, you gotta bring in all sorts of dance, and they
Mhm.
didn't, and I think it flopped.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious. They're adding in. football, baseball, softball,
Mhm,
um, cricket, lacrosse, and squash.
mhm,
Which of those sports besides flag football are you
mhm.
most excited to see back in?
I think I wanna say baseball just because it feels so overdue,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's such a big sport, but on that same level, cricket is more probably
Yeah.
world renowned, especially like the Middle Eastern
Yeah.
countries. That's huge over there,
Yeah.
Pakistan,
Even, like,
India, so
Australia,
yeah,
when
so
I was in Australia, that they
I think
that's all they watch, man. They love
yeah.
cricket.
I think I'd like to see cricket, understand a little bit more because when you see glimpses of it, you're like, "What the hell's going
Yeah.
on?" But if it's on the world
Yeah.
stage, start paying attention to it a little bit more, kinda understanding the rules and what about it.
Mhm.
So that'll be exciting. It's weird that all these, like, baseball type games are all coming in at once, though. Like,
Yeah.
even, like, squash is something, you just think it's just a old man gym game that they play,
Yeah.
but now it's an Olympic sport, which is pretty cool.
Yep. No, and I'm curious to see how lacrosse will be
Mhm,
implemented too. I think that'll be a fun sport to watch at the world stage. I'm curious how the US will do in a game like cricket too, because
mhm,
I don't think that's an area we're necessarily good at.
mhm,
So I think it'll be really interesting to see how we line up to the
mhm,
competition. Going to this year's Olympics, back to this year's Olympics, some storylines going back to it. We had some really world renowned athletes, one of them being Simone
mhm,
Biles, her excellence, Katie Ledecky, her excellence.
mhm,
So many. Honestly, we had a lot of women who
mhm,
really performed at the world stage. Who would you give your Olympic MVP to?
mm. It's a tough one because
I
I
didn't give you
know,
prep on this one
I
because I
know,
wanted to see your first
yeah,
reaction.
because like Ledecky, the way she won, I think it was the 1500
Yeah.
meter, just you can't even see anyone else in the frame, and
Yep.
she owns like 19 out of 20 of the fastest times in that event
Yep.
all time. That's just insane to me. I think it's ridiculous. I think swimming as a whole, the U.S. kind of fell
Yeah.
flat comparatively to
Especially
other
past
Olympics.
years, yeah.
Like Michael Phelps even came out and said like, yeah, a couple guys, stood out, but we just as a whole didn't prepare
Yeah.
well enough for it. But I think she was just outstanding. Simone Biles is just unreal.
Yep.
Like the way she can do her vault and all that stuff. And then I kind of want to throw a little slight MVP to the pummel horse guy who got
Oh,
USA Gymnastics their
okay.
first ever medal in the men's
Yeah.
gymnastic. Came out locked in. Total. He does his whole like routine based on math, which is crazy to me, and then gets a perfect score on it. Or whatever. So he's my slight MVP, and then Ledecky, I'm gonna give my Olympic MVP too.
Okay. I like it. I like it. I probably this one's tough for me. I'm probably also gonna go with
Mhm,
Ledecky, I think. She's just on a different level
mhm,
in terms of her event, and there's no one near her,
yeah,
and seeing that type of dominance at a world Olympic level is just nuts.
mhm,
Like, it's just nuts to see when no one even come close. Like,
mhm,
this has been an Olympic sport for
mhm,
so long. Like,
yeah,
she's literally the master of her craft.
mhm.
So I agree with Katie Ledecky there. Who would you who would you say was a maybe under the radar person for MVP? You kinda mentioned the
Yeah.
vault guy. I want another one.
I don't know his name off rip, but he does shot put, and he's won gold in the last
Oh,
3
okay.
Olympics, but no one ever talks about it, right? Because doing
Yeah,
shot put, it's fun to watch, but it's not like a big Olympic name. So
yeah,
he sets like another world record or Olympic record. No one really talked about him that much, so I think he could be up there for MVP. And then also my boy Steph Curry. We give
oh,
him
yeah.
the other
Oh,
slight
yeah,
too.
we'll get to
Dude
that
will,
too,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, another great choice with Steph Curry. I'm gonna actually go, women's wrestling side. I'm gonna go give it to, Sarah Hildebrandt. She has competed last 5 years. She got, like, bronze, silver, and finally she got the gold. Crazy story, though, with that is, like, at Olympic stage, a woman missed weight in the semifinals to make the
Mm,
finals. So she didn't get any medals, huge controversy. She appealed it, trying to get a medal. She got nothing.
Yeah.
And so Sarah Hildebrandt ended up having to wrestle a person who lost to her, which is just crazy that somebody is missing weight at the Olympic level. Huge controversies in the wrestling community, obviously. Um, in a more media way, they're saying like, "Oh, this is the bad side of wrestling," and it's like, you miss weight, dude.
Yeah,
Like, it's the rules. So
that's how
kind
it's
of crazy.
always
I don't know if
been.
you heard about that story or not.
No, that is crazy. Ah,
So
yeah, on the
yeah.
biggest stage. That's
Yeah, biggest stage, and she missed
uh,
weight, that's definitely like a middle school, maybe early high school thing, but you very rarely hear about that at that type
uh,
of level, so definitely crazy, but shout out to Sarah Hildebrandt, she got it done, no excuses, she made weight, and give her props, she won gold, and no Olympic men wrestler won a gold this year. Sadly, which is unusual for us. We usually have at least 1 or 2. Props to the women, they had 2 this year, and they performed well. So, alright, let's get into Olympic basketball. What did you think of Steve Kerr's philosophy with this team?
I,
Because it was very
mhm,
different.
yeah, different is a huge word. Popovich it's a whole different, like, night and day difference in the
Yep,
way that they coach the Olympics, the preparation, the way they allocate minutes to the stars and such is it's very interesting to me
yep,
because you had a games where Tatum and Halliburton don't get a single minute. Then the next game, Joel Embiid doesn't get a single minute.
yep,
And I know it's a tall task. You got 13 of the best players like on your team for the first time in a couple Olympics. So trying to balance minutes is tough, but I didn't like the way he managed minutes, honestly. It felt like,
yeah,
these are the best guys in the US.
yeah,
They should Your superstar should be getting more minutes. I don't think you should be balancing them out that way, allocating it the way he did. I think we should have been able to dominate teams more than we did, right? This is supposed to be a big old,
yeah,
like, we're going to go out and show we're number one again. And they did. They won the gold, but it wasn't as dominant. There was definitely some scary moments, even in the exhibitions before and during their run.
yeah. It was really interesting to see him really hone in on LeBron, Steph,
Bold.
and KD,
Yeah.
like, really run the
Mhm.
offense through those 3, and I get it. They're tried, they're true, they've been all-stars forever, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, there are so many weapons and so many different ways you could attack teams.
Mhm.
Honestly, if he wanted to, he could have a different guy running the offense every
Uh,
single game, and he didn't. It worked to Steve Kerr's credit, it worked. They got the gold, but it did feel like I don't know, to your point, I
mhm.
feel like we could have been more dominant.
Mhm.
We could have given them more wild cards. Yeah, it was interesting, especially you being a Celtics fan.
Mhm.
Tatum,
No.
0
It's
points?
Yeah, he did not shoot very well in these Olympics, which sucks. But it's hard for him, to come off the bench. He's behind
Yeah,
LeBron, KD, Booker, like he's
yep,
behind a bunch of other just absolute superstars. So it's hard to get minutes allocated that
yep,
way. And then when he does get minutes, he doesn't play very well to his like. I hate
yeah,
to say I love Tatum, but as he didn't play that spectacular in these Olympics.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Curry. Can we talk about Steph now?
Steph.
My gosh. So semifinal, we have an uh-oh, okay? I look at the score halftime. It's not looking great against Serbia. Jokic is going off. We can't really get anything going too much on offense. Then Steph Curry pulls up. Then Joel Embiid pulls up. What a freaking crazy semifinal. What did you think at halftime during that Serbia game?
I thought we were lucky to even be down that much because if
Yeah.
the first quarter, Steph scored 14 points in 3 minutes just to
Yep.
keep it within like manageable distance, and we were cold all around. It was pretty much just Curry and Durant through the first
Yep.
half, and it was like, wow. Yeah, I mean Jokic is him, but Jokic and like Bogdanovich, that's who
Yeah.
they have?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah. They had Bogdanovic, yeah.
they should not be up by 12 to 15 points at
Yeah.
halftime. Like, what are we doing here? This is for a spot in a gold medal game. And
Yep.
it felt like we were lazy and we thought we were going to roll in. Oh, we beat Serbia in the group stage by 26 points, right? Like, we're just going to
Yeah.
roll them again. And then Jokic, that dude is unreal.
Yeah.
The way he can orchestrate any kind of offense. And he wanted it. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like he
He
wanted it more
oh,
than the NBA. Like, when for your country win a gold. So he was competing well. And then, 4 minutes left in the third, it was like time to lock in. But first half was just walking through it, sleepwalking.
yeah. Well, it's a big and if Jokic won,
Mhm.
that's a big F you to the
Yeah.
US.
Mhm.
Like, "Fuck you, I run this league."
Yeah.
Like, imagine that big cock
Mhm.
coming back into the league, like,
Yep.
holy shit. But yeah, no, I think you put it down just fine. I mean, this US team looked like they were panicked at half, they didn't look like themselves. I thought we might actually have to put
Mhm.
in our subs, and actually use them, but, we figured it out in the second half. Talk about Joel Embiid,
Mhm.
Curry, those guys in the second half. What do you
Uh,
think?
I think a funny storyline, uh, Embiid, every time he goes against Jokic, he's somehow magically injured. Right, that's the funny
Yeah,
storyline. And before the game, he was like, "Oh, he's got ankle soreness. He might not play," but he toughed it out. And then the fourth quarter, right at the end, he went on that nice little 7-0 run by himself, kept us in the game before he let Durant and Curry take over
yep.
from there. So, props to Embiid. He showed up when it mattered in that game.
And I what impressed me most about Embiid, especially in that second half, it was his defense
Mhm.
and all the blocks and his hustle, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, "Are we seeing a Joel
Exactly.
Embiid be clutch right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Is this happening?" I think he upped his legacy points like
Mhm.
50. Like,
Yep.
I might actually believe in this guy. Like, he might actually have a chance to be a championship contending player after watching that? I don't know, what do you think? Do you think this changed your view on Embiid a
We'll
little bit?
we'll see. I don't know. He can't flop as much in FIBA, so maybe he actually had to play a little bit more within the rules. I thought that was hilarious. Like the first couple games, he fouled out in like 5 minutes in their first exhibition because it's different
Yeah.
rules. You can't flop. He's all over the place, but I don't know. I always liked Embiid besides the flopping. I think now maybe his confidence is
Mhm.
increased for his next NBA season. He can finally get past, a second round, get to a finals, get to a championship, becomes kind of like competitive championship. I think
Yep.
they'll be confident. The Sixers will going into next year. So I think
Yeah.
they'll have a chance. I know the East will be tough still. But,
Yeah. Now we go to the championship game. We're playing France. I think some of us were a little, I wouldn't say scared, but a little nervous about it, especially considering, I mean, your back or your front court is Victor Wembanyama and
mhm,
Rudy Gobert.
yeah.
2 just, I mean, they're the twin towers. Like, they legitimately are just fucking huge. Were you nervous before this game at all?
Not really, honestly. I felt like we got through our scare in the
Yeah.
semifinals, and it was a wake up call. Like, we're here now. We're gonna lock in.
Yeah.
Obviously, France is a good team. Like you said, it's hard to score over Wembanyama and Gobert and all the weapons that they have. But I felt like we matched up better against
Yeah.
that team with than we did against Jokic.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
I would agree with
but
that.
yeah, I felt like it was time for us just to. We're gonna go win the medal. We're here. We're locked in. We'll do whatever we have to do.
Well, yeah, and France didn't really have guys to match up with our scores.
Yeah.
LeBron, KD,
Mhm.
Steph, like, nobody was really guarding them
Mhm.
like that.
No.
And you can put Wemby or Gobert on there, but Steph's gonna run right past you. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? So, I agree with that for sure. Um, what did you? What were your thoughts on Curry's last 3 minutes?
Mhm. If man, because USA, we're leading the whole way, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this game is within
Close.
striking distance. It's like a
Yeah.
1 point game, right? And then Curry hits a three, so we're up four. And then if you didn't think Steph Curry was the greatest shooter of all time, this has to absolutely cement that.
Oh,
across every
absolutely.
record book. Cements him as a top 2 point guard all time. I don't want to hear it. Unreal. Shooting over Wemby, sidestep over 2 guys, 3-point dagger.
Yeah.
And anyone else shoots that shot besides like maybe 2 people in the history of the NBA, you're like, this is the worst shot I've ever seen. What are you doing?
Yep.
But him,
Especially when you have KD and LeBron
yeah,
wide open.
yep. This is routine Steph
Yeah.
Curry every day. I'm that guy in the moment shot. Just unreal.
I think this man, talk about legacy again. This man really boosted his legacy points as well, because like,
Yep.
people there are certain people who have always hated Steph Curry because
Mhm.
he's been good, right? He's like Tom Brady. People don't like Tom Brady because he's always been good, right? He
Mhm.
always won. Steph Curry, same light. Team USA, what's cool about that is you have to root for them, right? Like,
Mhm.
that is your guy.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you are finally rooting for this guy. We're all on the same team. And to see him just be himself at
Mhm.
a world stage and go off, hit 4 three-pointers in the last 3 minutes.
Mhm.
4. Absolutely nuts.
Mhm. Yep.
It's like something you see in the NBA,
Mhm.
but instead it's at a greater stage. It'd be like game 7 of the finals
Mhm.
almost. Like, it's nuts to me. And I also feel like with all the drama with Noah Lyles and him saying,
Mhm.
like, the world championship of what? The USA? Like, it almost kinda said, "Fuck you. We're
Mhm.
validating that the NBA is the world
Yep.
champions." You know what I'm saying? I feel like it totally validated it. What do you think? Do you think the US winning validated that?
Absolutely. I think that whole controversy was good for the basketball team.
Oh,
Noah
I do
Lyles
too.
saying that made everyone come together. It won us this gold, honestly, if you want to think about it that way. And Noah Lyles won a gold too, so it's like no one really won in the thing. They're both
Yeah,
world
yeah.
champs now, even though Noah Lyles has that whatever second place COVID thing
Yeah,
after.
he
But
got bronze. He got
yeah,
bronze, yeah.
bronze and got COVID.
In
Yeah,
two
okay.
200 meter, yeah.
Yeah, after he said he was going to win. But no, I still
Yeah,
think him saying that made the USA hungry for this more
yeah,
than they would have been the last, couple Olympics. It was just whoever you could get, but now it's the goats, the old squad, the old heads getting their last accolade. They're probably the last Olympics for most of them, which is
yeah.
crazy to think about too.
It's a good point.
Uh,
Who do you think will be the face of this team going forward?
I think
4
Ant,
years
or
from now.
yeah, I think you're gonna have Ant, which Ant's awesome, and he showed
Yep,
2 Olympics ago that he can be that guy. And
yep,
then this one, it kind of sucked. He didn't really get as much playing time in the Kerr system.
yep.
But I think going forward, you'll see him. You'll see Tatum.
I was gonna say, do you
Probably,
think Tatum gets a
I
bigger
think,
role now?
yeah, I think Tatum will get a bigger role. Bam will get a bigger role. You start getting like Chet Holmgren projected to be on there for the next one, and
I could
then
see, like, Jalen Brunson
yep,
on the team
yep,
on the next team in 4 years. I could
yep,
see, Jaylen Brown on the
mhm,
team in 4
yep,
years.
yep.
I
You'll
think a
Embiid.
lot of people I think a lot of people kinda throw shade
Mhm,
at those guys being left
yeah,
out, but in my opinion, it made sense, and here's
mhm,
why. I think from a chemistry standpoint, guys will be upset if they're
mhm,
not getting playing time, and Jalen Brunson, um, Jaylen Brown, I would
mhm,
say those 2 guys are top 10 players in the NBA right now.
mhm.
You think they're gonna be happy with getting
Ooh,
Tatum minutes?
yeah, nope,
I don't think so.
nope.
I don't think
Uh,
Tatum was happy with
no,
getting Tatum minutes, right? So,
right.
somebody has to sacrifice, and I think they realized that those guys
Mhm,
weren't the right ones.
uh, cra- I think. I wonder if 40-year-old Steph or like a 39-year-old Durant will run it back for one more Olympics, or if they'll let
It'd be interesting.
the younger. I think Steph could do it. I still think Steph has plenty of good years left if he wanted to.
It's He just doesn't seem to slow
No.
down. Like, there hasn't been one of those games where I'm like, "Oh, he's getting old."
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
I've seen that with LeBron. I don't know
Hmm.
if I've seen it with KD yet, but I've definitely
Yep.
seen it with LeBron.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I haven't seen it with Steph though.
Hmm.
Like, not even
I
close.
think.
Like, he still looks like he's in his
Hmm.
prime.
I think. I think another person I want to shout out is Booker. I feel like
Oh,
he didn't get a lot of
big
love,
shout out.
and he had a tough season with the Suns. They weren't all that. So he really wasn't talked about this whole year in basketball. He's kind of flew under the radar, in my opinion. And then in the championship game, he scored like 16, something like
Yep.
that. Like he was a big key to this team, and he didn't demand the ball. He played very
Yeah.
team oriented basketball, which is what he needed to do, especially with LeBron and Steph and Durant all trying to take over in games.
Yeah.
And so
He was that player that basketball teams need.
yep. So
Yep.
his defense was him and Drew Holiday defense elite
Yep.
for through these Olympics.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think Kerr even actually shouted him out in a speech. And reasonably so, he should have. Booker took the back seat when he is the 1 or 2 option on most teams. And I think that's what makes certain Olympic teams more special than others, and what makes certain Olympic teams work more than others is having those bigger role players take that back seat
Mhm.
for the team. So, shout out Booker. Do you think deep down, do you think LeBron's mad that it wasn't him that was making the highlights?
I'm gonna say no on this one, and it might seem a little against the grain, but in the Serbia game, end of the game, he took over to get them right at the end to
Yep.
get them the lead. So I think that was good for his legacy, and I think for him, this is more about just winning the gold by any means
Yep.
than opposed to just being that guy, because another gold medal to his accolades is huge for him, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, how does
Yeah.
this affect LeBron's legacy?" Blah blah blah. But if he gets a bronze, then they have more ammo to go against him in the talks.
Yeah.
So I think he just wanted the gold by any means. I'm sure he would have loved to been that guy that hits a clutch layup or and one or something, but
Yeah.
I still think the gold to him was more important than being that guy in the moment.
Yeah. Do you think okay, we'll go top 3 Olympic USA basketball players of all time.
Man, that's tough because Jordan didn't really play that good in the Olympics
Yeah.
when you think about it. So it's easy to be like Jordan's the greatest basketball player, but I don't know if he played the best on the
Yeah.
Olympics teams. And LeBron's got 2 golds now, I think. 08 in this one.
Yep. He might have 3.
Yeah, I don't know if he won
Yeah, he has 3.
03. So it's hard to leave him out of that top 3. Then you got players, Magic, Larry Bird from the 92 team, Kobe from the 08 Olympics. Like, it's hard.
Would you put
But
KD? Is KD in that
yeah,
conversation?
I think KD's and he's the all-time Olympic scorer for USA.
Yep.
So
And
I
he's
think
and he's a 4-time gold
yeah,
medalist
yeah,
now.
I think he's number 1 if you think about it
Number
that way.
1,
You think
KD.
yeah, yeah, he's been there through all the tough years too. So
Damn. I can't believe I'm
I know,
saying
right?
this, but Kevin Durant, you
Oh,
were loyal to Team USA. Holy shit.
crazy. Durant 1, LeBron 2, Steph 3.
Wow. So we just had
Yeah,
the so
I
you're
think
telling me we just had the top
I
3
know it's
Olympic
I don't know.
basketball players of all
It's
time
hard.
all on the
It's
same team.
hard because back in the '90s, like the Dream Team, right? They're
Yeah.
not going against this level of NBA talent either. Like there
Yeah.
was only 6 guys that were in the NBA that played for other countries back when they were, beating everyone by 50, 60 points a game. So
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, look at the stats. Oh, Magic Johnson had 32 assists in a game because he's playing against plumbers from Croatia. But it's hard to not put them in that conversation either because that '92 team was so dominant. But
Yep.
just from what I've seen through my life, I'll put those 3 as
Yeah.
the 3 best.
Yeah. Question, why do you think we care so much about winning
Mhm.
basketball in particular?
I just it's America's sport, right? That's what it feels like. It
Yeah.
feels like we've been dominant in it for so long, and since like Jordan spread the game of basketball across
Yeah.
the whole world, like we have to be the center of basketball. We can't lose that to European countries or to other countries. Like
Yep.
we have to maintain that
Be the
staple. Like that,
culture.
yeah,
Be
yeah.
that yeah.
Culture of basketball came from the USA. It has to
Yep.
keep going through us.
Okay. Good answer. I like that answer. I was just asking the question because it does
Mhm,
always feel like every Olympics, right? Like that is the one
yep,
sport, no matter what, we have to win it. It feels like
mhm,
we
yep,
cannot lose that one.
mhm,
Like we can at least make excuses for track or swimming or
mhm.
gymnastics, but like when it comes to basketball, we have to win that one. So I like the answer, Cade. All right. Well, quick little segment, but I appreciate you coming
Yep.
on. Talk about Olympics. Of course, football's right around the
Yes,
corner. We know
sir.
we'll be on a whole lot more,
Yes.
be seeing each other a whole lot
Mhm.
more. So, little rate the games
Yeah,
action. Grab your
absolutely.
popcorn,
Yes,
Mediterranean
sir.
Sea.
Bring it back.
Yes, sir. I'm
All right.
excited. So,
Yeah.
all right. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
All right, getting to the second part of this podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow. I appreciate all of you guys. Getting to our hip hop segment, I do have 3 album reviews for you today, and probably another 3 next week. I have gotten behind on my album reviews, but first, I do want to talk about the Death of Slim Shady album. Very interesting album by Eminem. I would say somewhat anticipated. Eminem, whether you like him or not, has a very, very loyal fan base. All right, getting into this album. First, starting off, I do want to say that I will not be going through every song. I know I typically do that, but I feel like I do bore you guys a little bit by going through every song. So I will mostly just be highlighting the songs that are good or poor. For each of my ranking system, will be using my logic method of rating. So starting off with lyrics, I think the lyrics here are a little overhated on. I've heard a lot of talks about how cringy this album is, and don't get me wrong, there are some cringy bars. But I will say this is an alter ego. Slim Shady is supposed to be controversial. Slim Shady is supposed to say some cringy bars. That's who he is. That's the personality in Eminem that he's bringing out. I think this these lyrics are above average, and I would say it's not super, super lyrically complex. However, he does do a good job of being able to tell stories as well as bring a concept to the table. I think the concept of killing Slim Shady and all Slim Shady's acts and minds and bringing it back, it's cool. But I do think is it a little cringy about his transphobic and fat phobic a little bit, and I get that Slim Shady's alter ego, but it's still like, I don't know. Maybe I've too inundated to the modern media and that not being okay. Maybe that is the case, but it did feel like he forced Slim Shady a little bit at times. On point production, I think there's a lot of funk. There's a lot of strange layered beats, and I think those really do come from Eminem. That was kind of the atmosphere that he wanted to bring. Um, I think there's a lot of versatility on it. You look at a song like Fuel with JID, and it's much more high pace, much more high energy, much more of the trap beat that I think we're used to seeing, and really showing us that Eminem is capable of bringing that modern sound to hip hop. And I think I would like to see him go after that. I know that's not necessarily his style to bring in trends and continue that, but I actually do love his rapping ability on that as well. I know we're talking about production right now, but I do think the production brought out a side of Eminem that I would like to see more often. Um, but going back to production, I think overall it's very playful, it's very funky. You get a range of variety of beats. Eminem's a good producer. He does execute pretty well, and I think it is the sound he wanted. It's not necessarily my favorite sound, um, but I think there is some trap infused in there. I'm gonna give production a 7.2 out of 10. Also, going back to lyrics, I got mixed up. Lyrics was supposed to be 8 out of 10. Going to Glorious Flows, Slim Shady kind of has that weird, whack kind of talk, different voices, different flows, and then you get Marshall Mathers and his flows. So you see a variety of flows on this album and a lot of voice fluctuations and I would say switch ups and flows. Um, I think some work really well on this album. I also think some really don't. I think there's some really awkward sounding flows and some experimentation that I don't think I like from Eminem. So, overall, I think there's good versatility. I think he does do a good job of trying different flows and keeping the listener engaged, but overall, I think it's a solid 7 out of 10. Going to immediate hits, I think the loyal fan base here really helps this category, because I don't think that there are songs on this album that would resonate with fans, had Eminem not had the fan base that he has. Overall, I think there his singles are really good. I think Toby and Houdini were both great singles to release before the album, and I think there's some other songs I personally love and I think are hits, but everyone is gonna have their different hits. However, I don't see a lot of these albums, like, I don't see, like, a Modern Day Monster or anything like that really hitting the radio. So overall, I'm gonna give this a 6.7 out of 10. Content matter, it's solid work. I think considering Eminem, modern day Eminem, I think this is probably his best since probably like 24 or probably Marshall Mathers LP 2, in my opinion. Maybe even best since Recovery. Um, I think there are some really good highs. I think there's some bad lows as well. There's some work to be done. I think there was a lot of forced personality. If I'm being honest, I think at times it felt like Eminem was trying too hard to bring back his old self because that's what fans have been pushing him to do. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have tried that, but it felt like he could be more authentic while doing it. I think the concept is super solid. I think there's some really complex, and I know there's a lot of cool theories that fans have come up with about the album, which may or may not be true. And I think that's really cool that people are diving this deep into this album, and people do that with Eminem's work. Um, Slim Shady, I think it was a really great try at trying to bring that the nostalgic feel, but ultimately I don't think it was fully a hit. I think it was just kind of average, maybe I would say above average. Um, Slim Shady, Eminem, it was all right, So I'm gonna give 6.8 out of 10. Shout out to the features on this though, Jid, White Gold, Sly Piper. Uh, I like the Jelly Roll feature, Big Sean, JID, as I mentioned already. There's some great features, and shout out to Eminem to getting those great features on this. Overall, this brings us to a score of 7.1 out of 10. Going to our next album, I have Kings of the Mischievous South 2, by Denzel Curry. Very interesting album. For those who don't know the history, Denzel Curry released the original Kings of the Mischievous South, um, in high school at 17, which was a mixtape. And he wanted that mixtape feel again, and we really heard it. Going to lyrics right away, I think there's some really introspective bars throughout the album, um, and there is a lot of clever bars as well, but this isn't as conceptual or complex or as lyrically solid as a project like Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, and that's okay. I'm not saying that every project has to be like that. I think this was more fun, but I can't give him, a high rating on lyrics if he doesn't spend as much time in that area as some other albums. So I'm giving this a 7.4 out of 10 just because I do think there is some storytelling within this and there are some really unique songs. Going to On Point Production, compared to his last album, I think it's a much different feel. Um, Very high pace, heavy trap, kind of a southern sound to it. That little bit of twang to it. There's some electronic influence. I don't like it. I know some people really like it. Songs like Hit the Floor and Hoodlums, I wasn't a fan of. I know some other people are a fan of. I didn't like it. I didn't think it worked at all. But that is a modern day sound, and maybe, that's not my sound. Another song I didn't really mess with in terms of sound was "G's Up," and that was just due to the repetitiveness. I actually think the Mike Dimes feature on that song is super great. But overall, I think the production was just kinda meh. There wasn't anything that really wowed me on this album. I think it's very simplistic in the sense that we hear very similar sounding beats, and when he did experiment, I actually didn't like it. So, for this, I have a 6.4 out of 10 on production. Going to Glorious Flows, if we are just speaking to Denzel Curry, I think he really only challenges himself on a few tracks in terms of different melodies and different flows. But overall, we really do hear that more higher pace, cutthroat Denzel Curry that we're used to seeing. That nostalgic sounding Denzel Curry that when he first came onto the scene that we were used to seeing as well. Something like um, an imperial, if you will. So I think we are used to hearing Denzel Curry in this tone. It kind of felt like he was going to his comfort zone, which is again totally fine and it sounds great. We bring in the features. I think there are some crazy ass flows. Um, Shout out to Mexican OT. I think this is a potential feature of the year. His flow on that song, the way he rolls his R's and brings in this incredible feature, amazing. I think somebody like Maxo Cream had a great feature and his flows. Mike Dimes, incredible feature. Don't like the song, but Mike Dimes feature on that, amazing. Um, and yeah, I think there are some really, really interesting flows. Even I liked Cole Pimp. I know some people don't like it, but Ty Dolla Sign's vocals on that are incredible in my opinion. Very melodic tone, feel, and I love it. Giving it a 7.2 out of 10. Going to immediate hits. I think this is a fun 2010s feeling South mixtape album. And I love it. I think people are overhating on it. I think there are some really good hits on this. I like Hot Ones, I like Set It, I like Black Flag Freestyle, I like Cole Pimp. I know other people, they like Hit the Floor, they like Hoodlums, they like Sked. I'm not a fan of those, but I think what I've gathered from this is there are hits for everyone and every type of genre, not every type of genre, but I would say there's 2 different sections, and those 2 different types of fans have enjoyed this albums in different ways for those hits, giving this an 8.3 out of 10. Going to Content Matter, the last one, I found this to be a thrown together mixtape. I think people need to appreciate it for what it is. It's not we don't always need to compare every album to the last album. Um, and I think this was truly Denzel Curry just having fun, and not trying to be so conceptual like he was in his last 3 albums, and I think that's completely okay. And so we need to realize that, enjoy it for what it is, and rate it as such. So I'm giving this 7.6 out of 10 for an average score of 7.4. All right, and going to my last album review, I do have "I Lay Down My Life for You" by JPEG Mafia. Obviously, a very interesting artist. I feel like you either love this man or you hate him. Believe it or not, just because I said that, I'm kind of in the in between. I do think he's an incredible producer, and we continue to see albums with incredible production, and the way he's able to experiment is just nuts. You definitely understand why Vultures is the way it is after listening to this album. It makes so much more sense. Um, going to and the reason I say that is because Kanye West was working with JPEG Mafia. Mafia had a or Peggy had an influence on Vultures and Vultures 2, and you can hear that sound. Some people say it ruined it. I don't know. I just don't think Kanye is Peggy's sound. And that's kind of Kanye's fault. So if you don't like it, you don't like it. Lyrics, I think it's above average. Peggy, when he talks about lyrics, I have noticed he goes back to kind of the same topics of he's got haters around him and he really doesn't want to um buy into that, and he's just gonna do his own thing and like fuck him. You know what I'm saying? And talking about how he got released from the military and just I feel like it's a lot of the same topics, and we didn't hear anything too lyrically complex. I think he is like a good storyteller. Like I can definitely follow along with his stories, with his lyrics, but it's nothing that like blows my mind by any means. He doesn't tell any stories where I'm like, wow, I'm not listening to Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, right? Like I'm not getting one of those songs on this, but that's also not Peggy's style in my opinion. I think he speaks more through production. So for lyrics, I'm going 7.1 out of 10. For on point production, talk about a listening experience, right? Like this is absolutely insane. If you can't appreciate Peggy's energy and Peggy's voice, just try to appreciate the amount of layers that Peggy puts into his production and the amount of attention to detail he puts into it. Every time I listen to this album and dig deeper, the more different elements I find in each track and the more I enjoy each track. Tracks I didn't like before, I suddenly like because of the production. I just think his influences and the amount of different aspects he brings in. We heard rock, we heard punk, we heard jazz, we heard different types of samples, samples from hip hop, samples from um just all sorts of different genres, and I think he's genius at just tying them all together and having all these different incredible high energy beat switch ups, beat flows. Like it is just incredible. There's nobody like it right now in the way he sounds. And I think the way he makes this chaos into this fun listening experience is quite incredible. Honestly, I don't like I said, I don't think there's anybody like him and his sound right now. I gave this a 9.2 out of 10. 9.2 out of 10. One of my highest rated productions, and I think it's deservedly so. Going to glorious flows. I think Peggy really hasn't shown too many flows in his career, to be honest, as a whole. We really didn't see a ton more in this album as well. He has a very specific style of rap. It's high energy. It's in your face. Do we see flow switch ups? Yes. Do we hear talking? Yes. Do we really see a whole lot of melodies? Not necessarily. I did enjoy when we saw Peggy on tracks um, such as either On or Off Drugs or even Don't Put Anything on the Bibles, have that more low key vibe to him. We haven't heard that. Some people said it fell flat, it was boring. I disagree. I think it was interesting to see Peggy take a step back and really be intimate and be more of that soulful person with his rap. So I enjoyed that. I think if we saw some of more of that versus some of all this high energy, right? It might be better. Um, so I enjoyed that. But overall, still nothing crazy. I'm gonna give it a 6.9 out of 10 for flows. Immediate hits. Underground rap fans love Peggy. Um, and he's never gonna get the mainstream attention, and that's okay. I don't think he wants it. I don't think he's a type of artist that would ever want that kind of thing. Did make me question when he was working with Kanye West if he was looking for that attention. However, I still don't see his sound changing to cater towards a more commercialized hip hop. I mean, the underground world will love the hits, so I feel like I have to rate it on that scale of underground hip hop, mixed in with some commercialism, so it's kind of average 7.2 out of 10. Going to content matter, I think this is a super solid project. I don't think it's his best work, but I definitely think it's up there on some of his better work for sure. I enjoyed the highs a lot. I think there is something that I find in this album every time I listen to it that I didn't find before. I think the chaos, the complexities is what makes this album fun. And I think Peggy shows potential to have that low key sound, and I hope I can see it again. So I'm giving this an 8.6 out of 10 to make this my highest album rated for the night of a 7.8 out of 10. Um, I loved all 3 of these albums. I do have more albums on the way, such as the Larry June album review, such as Kanye West album review. I'm recording this August 15th. Thursday, so something could come out tonight, where I could review that as well. So make sure to stay tuned. And like I said, follow, subscribe, be tuned for those album reviews as well. Thank you so much for listening and supporting me. We're already at 400 subscribers on YouTube, 400 followers, and 225 followers on TikTok. So crazy, crazy things happening. I appreciate y'all. Keep supporting.